Well, Saturday in Bloomington will be a bit more interesting with UCLA heading to see number 2 Indiana. The Bruins start the season off 0-4, but fast forward to those past 3 games. Somehow UCLA has looked a completely different team under interim head coach Tim Skipper, winning 3 straight games when it comes to them. As for the Hoosiers, it's been business as usual for Kirk Cignetti and that crew, riding a 7-game win streak at the top of the conference in the Big Ten. Saturday noon Eastern, this how the tell the tape pairs out for both of them in Week 9 there. Indiana, of course, the highest rank in AP poll history. UCLA, as I mentioned, 3 straight wins against Penn State, Michigan State, and Maryland coming into this one. Meanwhile, both sides of the ball for Indiana have been rolling. Only FBS team with points per game and opponents' point per game in top 5 so far this season. All right, for more of this matchup here, Jeff Rabjohns and David Woods from 24/7 Sports to get us ready for Saturday. But let's start with UCLA because a few weeks ago, David, most people would say that this was a runaway game for Indiana based on what we saw from the Bruins. But those 3 straight games in terms of W's for the Bruins, it's a little different. But what has changed in your eyes?
I think it starts with Tim Skipper, the interim head coach. He was named after Deshaun Foster was fired 3 games in. And took a week. They lost to Northwestern, but he's put his stamp on the program. The amount of enthusiasm from these players, their belief, and you can clearly just see it. They're having fun playing football, which it didn't look like it was very fun through the first 3 games. Effort levels massively improved, intensity, and then there have been tweaks scheme-wise. He brought in a new defensive play caller, Kevin Coyle. He brought in, elevated a new offensive play caller in Jerry Neuheisel. And they've put their stamp on the program, and I would say the schemes have improved. They're more aggressive on defense, and then offensively, there's just a better plan in place. It's not a bunch of movement just to move. It's, they're trying to get guys in space a lot better. And it's just been overall just a massive improvement, and you've got to give a ton of credit to Tim Skipper and then the 2 assistants he's named in Kevin Coyle and Jerry Neuheisel.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, what I look at it, what I see is a 3-0 team. Okay, I'm looking at who are you under the current head coach and the current coordinators. They're rushing for 233 yards per game, as you saw there in the graphic. Their time of possession in these 3 games, 36.5, which means they have almost a 13-minute per game time of possession edge. That's huge. 50% conversions on 3rd down, 70% conversion on 4th down. They've gained 2 possessions on fake punts. So that's obviously times you're taking the ball away from your opponent. And they've outscored their opponents 58-17 in the first half in these past 3 games. So I think this is a very good UCLA team as it has played these last 3 games under the current construction of the coaching staff. I think they're really good. The way they're running the ball is really impressive. The way they're keeping the ball and their willingness to take some gambles, go for it on 4th down. Some of the plays they've run on 3rd and long, very creative. The 2 fake punts, certainly willing to take some risks. So it's a team that's been productive in these 3 games, and it's a team that's kind of looking at it like, hey, not a lot to lose. Let's roll the dice, boys.
A wrinkle we didn't see in the first 4 games, Jerry Neuheisel and Nico Malialov. A lot of people, David, thought that, Nico made the wrong move leaving Tennessee and going to UCLA. It was like, uh-oh, this isn't a fit. That is a different ball game the past 3. What has been key for both of them in terms of getting this offense moving?
Huge amount of it has been simplification. I think there was a lot of complexity in Tino Sunseri's scheme through the first 3 games, and it wasn't gelling at all with any of these guys, but especially Nico. I think with what Coach Neuheisel, Jerry Neuheisel, has done, and this is something that the receivers have echoed, is just make things simple. When you see this look, it's you run a short out. When you see this look, you're running a short post. And it's just changing things so that everyone knows what everyone else is doing. A lot of guys have talked about we've got a better understanding now of what every different part of this scheme is trying to do. And it's not that it's gotten more complex, it's gotten a lot simpler with that, and it's allowed them to play more freely, and it's allowing them to do things like putting in some wildcat formation that isn't hard to prepare as an offensive guy, but it makes it harder for the defense to adjust their own look to it. So there's been a lot there, and I think Nico has really thrived in this last 3-week period. Had a little bit of a tough outing against Maryland, but he's been able to use his legs a lot more. I would say his accuracy has looked better now that he's not having to think quite as much every single play. And you're starting to see him grow again as a quarterback. I would say at the beginning of the year, he looked like he'd almost regressed from where he was at Tennessee. Now he looks like he's in that progression phase again, and you can start to see the guy that everyone was talking about as a top draft pick. You can start to see him emerging again. These last 3 games have been really impressive for him.
That unit has averaged 33 points per game and 233 those past 3 games, as you mentioned there, David. On the opposite side, Curt Cignetti mentioned this week he is not overlooking the Bruins. We didn't expect that, but however, you have to believe his sights are a little bit bigger in terms of winning the conference and possibly a title. And Jeff, I'm curious, what have you been hearing about those conversations in terms of their goals?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time we sat down with him after a day or two after he was hired, and one of the things he kept saying when we asked questions, he said, there are no self-imposed limitations. And even asked, like, okay, what qualifies as a successful season? No self-imposed limitations, Rabbi. We are going to aim for anything and everything. And it's really amazing. It's almost like a mythical story coming to life right in front of us. I mean, this is the program that has the most losses in major college football history. They just went to the college football playoff. Now they're sitting there number 2 in the country. They've got one of the best defenses in the country. They're number 2 in tackles for loss, number 4 in scoring defense. They're on the offensive side. You've got a Heisman Trophy candidate, front runner in some places if you want to look at sportsbook stuff, and they're number 4 in the country in scoring offense. It's really just it's more than even the most fanciful dreams of IU fans. They never imagined this. They wanted to become maybe Iowa or Wisconsin, win 8 games with some regularity, maybe have a magical 9-win season, something like that. And now you're talking about a team that has been to the playoff and is not only in position to win the playoff, be in the playoff this year, could win games, could make a run, and if they stay on course, they're set to play number 1 ranked Ohio State here in Indianapolis in the Big Ten championship game. Things just beyond the wildest dreams of most IU fans.
David, on the flip side, when you talk about quarterback play, Fernando Mendoza, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. In other words, he takes care of the ball. The reason why they're number 2 in the land. What are you hearing about the defensive plan dealing with him?
It's going to be a challenge. This is probably, without a doubt, the biggest challenge for UCLA this year. Fernando Mendoza, UCLA is familiar with him, I think, institutionally, since he was at Cal for so long. But he's a really, really tough guy to defend because not only is he, and he's improved a lot in this scheme, too. I think you've got to give credit to Indiana's scheme because they made Curtis Rourke into a much better quarterback. They're making Fernando Mendoza into a Heisman contender, which he wasn't at Cal. But he's been super impressive. He's really accurate, and he can make plays with his legs. He's a good athlete. He's got mobility on the edge. UCLA is going to have to be really, really disciplined. They had issues early on in the year before Kevin Coyle came in, defending against quarterbacks who could move a little bit. The edge containment was really poor. I think Indiana's not super invested in getting him out and running, but I think that's something UCLA is going to be cognizant of. But I think they're just going to have to play really, really disciplined and gap-sound football. Indiana's just an extremely sound team. They throw it pretty well. They run it really well. It's going to be very, very challenging for UCLA's defense, but they've shown significant improvement as well in the last 3 weeks. They played a really impressive game against Maryland. This is just an entirely different beast, and they're going to have their hands full.
2 quarterbacks that can get it done when in terms of through the air and also through their legs there. But on Saturday at noon Eastern, of course, we need an expert pick here. Jeff, I'll start with you with home field advantage.
Yeah, I think Indiana wins this one pretty handily. I think they have a great respect for what UCLA has done in its last 3 games. But one of the biggest things Curt Cignetti hammers to his team is as soon as Saturday is done, that is over. He likes to use the phrase, rip the rearview mirror off, focus on the next game. And Cignetti, Bryant Haynes, Mike Shanahan, all of them, they understand that there's a real opportunity here to do something not just special in terms of IU's history, but something truly special on the national scene. So I think they're going to be very focused. I think they were a little sloppy defensively in the first quarter or so against Michigan State, took some bad angles. They've looked at that film and gone, okay, we got to be really prepared from the jump. And, Fernando Mendoza is just having a clear Heisman candidate contending type season, and he's really difficult to stop. And what's really impressive to me is the numbers. The numbers are great. Sure, 21 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. Everybody can look at that and go, wow. But when you look at the kind of throws he's making NFL throws. And it's not just like one a game or two. You're getting the points 3, 4, 5 times. You're like, wow, that's an NFL throw. When I was covering the Indiana game at Oregon, there was actually an NFL scout sitting to my left, and he just kept going, wow, whoa. Did he just throw that? I was like, yeah. So I just think Mendoza is incredibly difficult to stop. And they have really talented receivers. Some people have argued Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper should be in the discussion for best wide receiving duo in the country. I think that's fair. You got E.J. Williams out there who can make plays, who's 6'4" and can just, really pop off the turf and get way up in the air. Riley Nowakowski's now making some really impressive catch and runs. IU can actually run the ball as well as they did, early in the season. So I just think it's really, really difficult to slow Indiana down, much less stop them. I think what UCLA has done in its last 3 games, very impressive. Great for UCLA, wonderful story. Certainly gives their fans hope. But I think on Saturday at Memorial Stadium, I think Indiana wins, and I think Indiana wins handily.
Yeah, looking at it, I would say Kurt Cignetti this week made it very clear that he is 100% focused on UCLA, and I think the challenge with that is you're facing off against what I consider to be he's going to have a statue at Indiana very soon. He's going to be one of those kind of legendary coaches from just what he's produced already. When you've got that guy's sole focus, I think it becomes a big challenge to try to pull off the upset. I do think UCLA is playing a lot better football. I think Indiana's defense, though, presents a new challenge for Jerry Neuheisel that, Penn State had similar talent, but they were a demoralized team when UCLA faced them, and they were not expecting what UCLA ran out there. This is a really good Indiana defense, and it's a really good Indiana defensive staff, and they have now seen 3 games of Jerry Neuheisel film. I think it's going to be a real challenge for UCLA to score the 24 to 27 points that they would need to have any realistic shot at an upset here, and that would require, as Jeff pointed out, shutting down an offense that it's been very, very good this year. So it's a real challenge, but I like this one as a competitive-ish game at halftime, and then probably something where Indiana ends up winning comfortably. I'd probably go something like 31-14 Indiana.
The Hoosiers, by the way, 25 and a hook favorite in this one, also trying to protect a 13-game home win streak when it comes to playing in Bloomington. We will see. Jeff and David, appreciate your time breaking all that down on Saturday at noon Eastern, but don't forget on CBS, we do have a big one, Minnesota and Iowa on Saturday. You can catch on CBS and Paramount Plus at 3:30 Eastern time, of course, in the Big Ten.